You can then classify your patient. If your patient is having AKI or acute kidney injury, take note that if you do not treat the primary problem, then your patient will eventually go into CKD or chronic kidney disease. How do you then monitor that? You have to add the glomerular filtration rate as a tool of monitoring. Glomerular filtration rate, when it decreases to less than 10, tells you that your patient now is moving from CKD to ESRD. Okay? Now, if it's CKD, you may have to do okay with dialysis, but if it's ESRD, you may have to have renal transplantation surgery. You must understand that a person can actually live with just one kidney. So I was saying glomerulus, tubulointerstitial, blood vessels. When you're dealing with tubulointerstitial, you have to take a look at the function of urine output. If you see deterioration, meaning oliguria to anuria, that tells you that more likely your problem is more at the level of the tubules. Now, that being said, sometimes you have to add in the workup biopsy. So when you do a biopsy, you also take a look at the 4 structures. Like for example, this is an example of glomerulus, which you all know is abnormal. The tubules and the interstitium here are filled with inflammatory cells in between, telling you that there is tubulointerstitial nephritis. The blood vessel here is exhibiting onion skin-like appearance, which means that there is arteriolosclerosis. So those also are the things that the pathologist needs to assess when a biopsy is done. When you're interpreting the biopsy, you always have to remember this structure. That goes the same when you study the chapter. The green is called mesangium. It has mesangial cells. The orange are your endothelial cells. It has red cells because in the lumen, it tells you the process of filtration. Okay? So orange is endothelium. Green is mesangium. It rests, the capillaries rest on what you call as basement membrane. Next to it would be your epithelial cells. The one that's adjacent to your basement membrane is called the visceral epithelium, otherwise known as podocytes. Take note, the P in podocytes should remind you of the word protein, because if you have a problem with the visceral epithelium, the usual manifestation will be proteinuria. Okay? The visceral, next to that is your Bowman's space. And then next to that is supposed to be your parietal epithelium. It is important to know these structures because later you will understand that they are proliferating and gives us a clue of the type of glomerular diseases we're looking at. Why am I saying that? Because biopsy will not show you the deposition of immune complex. The H&E cannot show you that. So when you do the biopsy in renal diseases, you have to do electron microscopy and immunofluorescence because most glomerular diseases are due to antigen-antibody complexes deposition, and that is something that you cannot visualize using the routine H&E. Okay? So, this is an example of an electron micrograph. So let's try to review if you are following my discussion. The mesangium, you should know where it is now. The endothelium, okay? The basement membrane, the visceral epithelium, and the parietal epithelium. I'm trying to emphasize that because first thing that you need to do is do your PE and history. So, in your PE and history, you ask questions like what? Namamanas ka ba? Umiihi ka ba ng dugo? Or tea-colored urine? Okay? Then you do your workup. If you followed what I have enumerated, you do your usual urinalysis, BUN creatinine level, your GFR, okay? And then you can classify your patient, check the BP, whether the patient belong to any of the syndromes I have enumerated. Okay, now, the next thing is actually trying to remind you again to check the glomerulus. So as I have said, the glomerulus is expected to undergo changes like what? Hypercellularity. What is happening? There is proliferation of cells inherent in the glomerulus. Like what? Endothelial cells, mesangial cells, and epithelial cells. The basement membrane, where the capillaries are actually resting, okay, can also have thickening. This is because of the immune complex deposition. The vessels, the capillaries, and the arterioles may appear pink. That's what you call as hyalinosis. And it can also have deposition of collagen, and that is what you call as sclerosis. Now, so when you do a biopsy, you have to check whether all glomerulus are involved. If that's the case, that is what you call as global. That is what you call as diffuse. If you have one glomerulus identified, so ulit the biopsy, check if all glomerulus are involved. Okay. If not, then focus on that particular glomerulus which is involved. Now, when you have identified that glomerulus, check if all the capillaries are affected. If not all, then that's what you call as segmental. So these are just introduction of terms that you will need to know as we go through the different diseases. These are the diseases that we have to go through for the first part, which is glomerular diseases. So as I have mentioned, it is quite lengthy, but it's, well, I'll hopefully be able to teach you how to distinguish one from the other. And at the end of the lecture, hopefully you'll be able to grasp how to go about with your patients. And when you read your book, that will also reinforce it. So, as I was saying, you have to do three things. Ano ulit yun? Light microscopy, electron microscopy, and immunofluorescence. Now, let us proceed with the discussion. So, H&E will not give you the immune complex deposition. What will it give you? It will give you the four things. Ano ulit yun? Hypercellularity, both basement membrane thickening, hyalinosis, and sclerosis. Okay? But the cause is almost always immune mechanism. This is something that you have learned already in Patho A. But I would want to review it because basically, these are what you need to identify when you look at the electron microscopic findings of your patient, which will distinguish one disease from the other. Okay, let us start or discuss further using this illustration. When you filter the blood, okay, diba? Sinabi ko na kanina yon. When you filter the blood, sometimes the antigen-antibody complexes goes with it. But this time, they are already formed complexes. So in the first illustration, you will see that the circle, which represents the antigen, is already bound to the Y, which represents the antibody. So as it is going through the process of filtration, the antigen-antibody complexes deposits in the subendothelium. Okay? Subendothelium. Now, there are cases in which antigens are actually cross-reacting against inherent structures in your glomerulus. Like for example, the glomerular basement membrane. Typical example is good pasture. Now, if you have that, so the antigen is along the GBM, inherent, okay? Your body produces antibody so that, as you can see in this illustration, the antigen-antibody complexes are along the GBM. Okay? Next, sometimes they produce antibodies basically acting on your or on the side of your epithelial cells. This is what you call as subepithelial deposits. And the last is the green, which is the mesangium. So, when you localize antigen-antibody complexes, there are four sites. Subendothelial, along the GBM, subepithelial, and mesangial. Intindihan? Class? Hello, good morning. Did you understand? Ano ulit yung four sites? Subendothelial along the GBM, subepithelial, and mesangial. Okay? Now, why am I trying to emphasize that? Because you need that. Look at this illustration. Mesangial is typical of IgA nephropathy. APGN is typically subepithelial. Okay? So, that's why I'm saying that you need to know where the complexes are because you have to correlate that with the clinical, the H&E, and the fluorescence. That's actually the toxic table that I showed you a while ago. But there are salient points that you can actually identify to delineate one from the other. So this is just a review of how antibody deposition and T-cell immune reaction are happening. As you can see for antibody, just a reminder, you have taken this up in Patho A, but basically we have complement activation. And then from T-cell, you have different growth factors. Okay? Now, I already mentioned that visceral epithelial cells is otherwise known as podocytes. The P in podocytes should remind you of protein. When you efface the podocytes, the protein leaks out. And as I have mentioned, almost all diseases of the kidney will give you proteinuria because the substances that are supposed to be absorbed back are actually leaked out. Okay? Now, the next part is I'm trying to discuss with you now immunofluorescence. The simple principle for the non-medtech specifically is what? You have known antibodies, okay? Manufactured antibodies, which is basically highlighted using a dye that fluoresces when you use dark field microscopy. That's the principle. So, if you're looking for IgG, IgM, C1, complement 1, complement 3, this is properly labeled in the lab already. So what you need to do is to apply those commercially prepared reagents to the tissue. And that is supposed to be taken up depending on the antigen that it acts upon that is present on the tissue. Then it emits fluorescence. To visualize fluorescence, you cannot use our usual microscope downstairs. You need to use a specialized microscope that highlights the dye. It emits fluorescence, and that is why the term is immunofluorescent microscopy. It gives you two patterns. One is granular, and the other one is linear. Okay? So ulit ano ulit yung two patterns? Granular and linear. Now, if you are going to take a look, sige, let's do the first case. Naintindihan niyo ba ako? O nagsasaulo kayo ng pharma habang nakatingin kayo sa akin? May plating ba kayo ngayon? Meron. Okay, so ulit So, let's do the first case. Talent ko rin yan nung nag-aaral ako eh. Nakatingin ako sa teacher pero inaaral ko pa. Sige, ulitin natin. APGN. So, this is actually slide number 1. But I finished. It's just something that will equip you so that hopefully when we discuss the disease, you will understand what I'm trying to say. I cannot go straight to the diseases without making the introduction because it's going too hard for you as students to cope. Okay? So, the APGN, the P there, should remind you of a lot of things. One is etiology. It can be secondary to a history of streptococcal infection. That is why it is otherwise known as post-streptococcal. It is usually arising on a background of history of infection, either from the pharynx or the skin. The type of strain is group A beta hemolytic strep. Okay? Now, the P there should also remind you, so there is another group which is non-streptococcal, but the usual is post-streptococcal. The antigens produced from the organism is actually producing antibodies. We're actually producing antibodies, and that is what causing the glomerulonephritis. Now, when you take a look at the biopsy of the patient, the P again should remind you of the word proliferative. That means your glomerulus is supposed to be enlarged and hypercellular. What proliferates are your endothelial cells and your mesangial cells. It is enlarged because you also have leukocytic infiltration. So, again, hypercellular glomerulus is due to proliferation of endothelial cells, mesangial cells, and leukocytic infiltration. That's the hallmark of APGN. Now, APGN, okay, acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, as I have said, is you have to do immunofluorescence. The classic is granular. The antibodies that you can identify are IgG, IgM, and C3. When you do your electron microscopy, the classic localization is subepithelial humps and bumps. Okay? Clinically speaking, your patient is more of nephritic type. Okay, so let's try to sum up. APGN, paano ulit? Nephritic. Okay? Ano ulit ang history? Post-streptococcal or not? History of pharynx or skin. Okay? What do you look for in the H&E? Enlarged hypercellular glomerulus. And then you do granular IF, subepithelial humps. Okay? So that is how you go about with GN. Next, RPGN. Look at the first paragraph, or I say paragraph because it's quite long, because the PowerPoint is intended for you to, read. But I'm skipping it because I'm not trying to read, okay? I'm trying to explain. So, the rapidly progressive is to remind you that it has rapid deterioration of renal function. Okay? So as you can see there is rapid deterioration of renal function. So that's your clue clinically. Now, the term crescentic should remind you of what to look for histologically. Again, crescentic is reminding you of what to look for histologically. But before we go into that, let us first try to enumerate the types of RPGN. The first one is what you call as anti-GBM. I have already used this as an example a while ago while I was discussing the immune complex localization. You are actually producing antibodies cross-reacting with basement membrane components occurring in two organs. One is the lungs, so that patient may present with hemorrhage in the lungs. Clinically, hemoptysis is the usual. And the other one is the rapid deterioration of renal function, and that together is what you call as Goodpasture syndrome. So that is type 1. The other one is immune complex deposition. A lot is enumerated. As you can see, post-infectious GN. So, anong nangyari? Ba't ganun? Kanina you said post-infectious GN is proliferative. Yes, that's why I'm emphasizing it to you now. See, clinically they may look the same. The difference will be on the morphology given during the histologic examination. So post-infectious GN can present as proliferative. It can also present as rapidly progressive. You get me, class? Okay? When it presents as rapidly progressive, it is falling under immune complex deposition. Now, the other one is what you call as ANCA-associated or type 3 RPGN. So you won't forget, this is number 3. And it's ANCA. The usual example is vasculitis. When you do this, you are supposed to be reminded of W, which is Wegener's. Okay? When you flip W, it gives you an M. That is actually your code, which is microscopic polyarteritis. So you should not forget that type 3 is Wegener's and microscopic ANCA-mediated. Now, the pattern is linear. Okay, so take a look. Why is it called crescentic? Take a look at the histologic image. It gives you a letter C appearance. Crescent is actually representing to the letter C appearance of abnormality. Okay, like the moon. Why? As you can see, there is obliteration of the Bowman space. Think of what I have said a while ago. What encroaches it then? Epithelial cells. Because the blue, diba, is the visceral, the yellow is the parietal. So when epithelial cells proliferate, where will they go? They will fill up the Bowmans. That is why in presentic, it is characteristically obliterated. The pattern in which it is obliterated assumes a C-like configuration, hence the term presentic. Are you okay? Naintindihan? Ha? Sige, next. Parang nakangiti kayo ng bubuntong hininga, hindi ko maintindihan ang expression nyo. Pero I hope you are Happy Valentine's Day in advance, okay? So, naisip ko rin, pag nag-makeup ako ng 3 to 6, baka may date yung iba eh. So, anyway, so let's go to membranous. Okay, ulitin ko ha, membranous. Oh, point of emphasis. Look at third bullet. SLE. Oh, saan ulit siya gaya? Natatapos ko lang. Nasa RPGN siya. Type, ano type? 2. Okay? Pero ngayon, nandito na naman siya sa membranous. Yun ang ibig sabihin. Etiology, pare-parehas yan. Kahit saan pwede mag-trigger. Okay? Magkakaiba ngayon siya sa histology. Okay? So, if you're going to take a look at the word membranous, what is the inherent structure in your nephron that is telling you membranous? So it's the basement membrane. Okay? So, where do you look for the pathology of basement membrane? I already told you this. Antigen-antibody complexes. They may have nephrotic or nephritic syndrome. Naintindihan nyo na yan, supposed to be. Now, this one, membranous, is characteristically, you should not forget, thickening of the glomerular capillary wall. Kasi nga, di ba, pinag-usapan natin kanina, basement membrane is where your endothelium lies. Okay? So, thickening of the glomerular capillary wall is the characteristic histologic feature. You should see it as spikes on silver stain. It gives you a granular appearance, IgG deposit. Okay? Granular appearance, IgG. Okay, testingin natin ang SLE. So, alam mo may SLE ang patient. Okay? Nagpa-renal biopsy ka. Okay? You did a renal biopsy. You saw crescents. So, the IF should be what? Linear. Did you get that? You saw thickening of the glomerular basement membrane. The IF should be granular. So how will you diagnose? What will you tell to your patient? Oh, you have SLE and your kidney is having, first case, RPGN. So what is the message? RPGN is more severe form. Okay? You have SLE, your kidney is having membranous glomerulonephritis. Okay? Now, ulitin natin, kung streptococcal, for example, post-infectious, you saw that the kidney is having crescents. So ano siya? Basically, it is type 1, 2, or 3. Type 1. Diba? Type 1. Having crescents. Now, what if I say that you have a post-streptococcal and your kidney is enlarged and hypercellular? Then that is falling under your APGN. Okay? Sige, let's go here. Next case. This is called minimal change disease because the H&E is looking like normal. Okay? So that is how you should remember the title. The minimal change disease is called as such because the H&E is looking like normal. It is called lipoid nephrosis because it is usually presenting with proteinuria, nephrotic syndrome in children. Now, children, the C there in change should remind you of the population, children. They are usually after bouts of respiratory infection or immunization. So when you look at the title, minimal change, you have to be reminded already of a lot of things, okay? The H and E are basically looking like normal. The C should remind you that the population is often children. That's why it is regarded as the most common cause of nephrotic syndrome among children. Now, this is usually associated with other diseases as well, like atopic, lymphoma, and nephrin mutation. I was emphasizing on lipoid, okay? Because I was actually telling you to remember also the P in lipoid. Because the problem in this disease, P is podocytes. The problem is diffuse effacement of your podocytes, which, as I have said a while ago, when podocytes come in, you should remember that P is also for protein. That is why your patient with this disease usually presents with nephrotic. You measure the level, it should be more than 3.5, which, as I have already mentioned when I was doing the orientation. So take a look. Massive proteinuria is the problem because you have podocyte effacement. Okay? Let's take a look at the FSGS. So again, it has a lot of causes. So if you will observe what I'm trying to do, I'm actually parang dinadaanan ko lang yung causes. Because it really doesn't matter. There are overlaps. Okay? What really matters is how you will distinguish one from the other. What is the type of GN that is happening in your patient? Now, there is again inherited form, which is this time causing encoded proteins. Again, nephrin. Sino yung kagaya niya? Yung katatapos lang natin. Diba? There is also nephrin mutation there. So, again, the difference is in the morphology. Look at this glomerulus. Diba? I told you a while ago, when you have a biopsy, you check if all glomerulus are involved. All glomerulus are involved or not. Okay, so dito, focal lang sabi. So, ibig sabihin, not all glomerulus are involved. Okay? Ang sabi, segmental. So, when you have identified a glomerulus that is involved, you need to check the involvement of the capillary loops. Okay? Sabi daw, segmental. So meaning, in this view, as you can see, the upper part is involved. It's all pink. Okay? The lower part is still normal. That's why it is called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Now, it can be highlighted using a special stain called trichrome. So, membranoproliferative. Ulitin natin membranoproliferative. Naaral na natin to. Anong sabi natin sa membranous? Dapat sa GBM katitingin. Diffuse thickening. Anong sabi natin sa proliferative? There is enlarged hypercellular glomerulus. Put that together. And then you have this. So as you can see, the glomerulus is enlarged. It encroaches, again, the Bowman space because it is enlarging, okay? And then you have thickening of glomerular capillary wall. Now, how do you take a look at your patient? Parehas ulit. Either nephrotic or nephritic. Ano ulit ang nag-distinguish ng dalawa? One is the amount of proteinuria. Ano pa? Two is hypertension. Sinong may hypertension? Nephritic. Okay? Nephritic component. So, when you have MPGN, you divide it into two again. How? You look at the electron microscopy. Type 1 is subendothelial. Type 2 is otherwise known as dense deposit disease. because it is along the membrane. That's why it's called membranoproliferative. Okay? The membrano should remind you that it is along the membrane, glomerular basement membrane. And so when you do your immunofluorescence, you have to request for the following: C3, CIQ, C4. Look, the pattern on both is granular, but CIQ and C4 are present in one, absent in two. Okay? Present in one, absent in two. So if you're following, membranoproliferative 1 should be what? On EM, you have subendothelial. And then on IF, ano dapat? CIQ, CI4, C4, present, granular. If you have MPGN on HNE, EM showed you dense deposits along the glomerular basement membrane. More likely that's type 2. You do your IF, the CIQ and C4 should be absent. Okay. So that's how you split. Bakit ganun na tayo mag-lecture ngayon? Ba't ganun na yung takbo? Mag-VNEC ka na eh. Diba? Ano yung VNEC? Third year. Okay? So, doktor ka na. Andyan na. Malapit na. So, when you take a look at your patients, dapat ganun ang takbo ng utak mo. Ano ang differentials? Okay? Hematuria, proteinuria, oliguria. Saan ka mag-focus? Sa glomerulus ka ba mag-focus? Sa tubulointerstitial ka ba? Or sa blood vessels? Pag nag-decide kang glomerulus, paano mo ngayon pag-iwaiwalayin? Ang dami. Diba? So now you have to take a look and then identify what is actually the diagnosis of your patient. And that is clinical. You will see this again, where internal medicine, nephro. Okay. Ulit. So, you have your double contour or trunk track pattern that is actually your basement membrane, as I have mentioned, that is often thickened. Okay. So, IgA nephropathy, burgers. The B in burger should remind you of blood. Okay? Blood. Because this is the only manifestation of patients. Usually, they will just present with hematuria. The cause is IgA mesangial deposition. Okay? How do you confirm? You have to, again, do fluorescence. So, you will see mesangial deposition of IgA. As I have said, you look for hematuria. Look at this slide. It's quite busy, right? Read through it. Kahit sa ang bullet, it's all hematuria. Okay? So as I was saying, the B should remind you of blood. Burger is hematuria. Okay? Now, when you have something that runs in the family, you think of one, thin basement membrane lesion. Okay? The characteristic feature on GBM is diffuse thinning. Sino ang kabaliktaran niya? Membranous. Diba? This is diffuse thinning. One. Number two, it should run in the family. Bakit? Nag-usap natin, hereditary eh. Okay? It has something to do with collagen. The other hereditary is what you call as Alport. This is X-link. Okay? So, male express the syndrome and females are regarded as carriers. So, ang pasyente mo should be lalaki because it is X-link, and you look for other things like what? Deafness. Okay? Eye. So, you check on 3 organs. Ano-ano? Kidney, ear, eyes. Okay? Pag meron lahat yan, syndrome. Anong syndrome? Alport. The problem is GBM synthesis. Again, it's still collagen type 4. Okay? Now, lahat ng pinag-usapan natin, which is quite a lot, eventually may go into CGM. Now, I love to use this illustration to teach my students. The arrow corresponds to the course and prognosis. The bigger it is, the shorter it is, the faster is the prognosis. So as you can see from here, as I have said, we don't want crescentic or rapidly progressive kasi siya yung pinakamadalas. Okay? Now, if you have CGN, ano kailangan mo i-monitor? Sabi ko kanina, a glomerular filtration rate, because eventually, if it is less than 10, maybe you are facing a patient with ESRD. CGN is characteristically bilaterally contracted kidney. This is an autopsy, meaning this patient underwent renal transplantation that failed. Okay? So the autopsy is none, and as you can see, classically, you have symmetrically contracted bilateral kidneys. When the biopsy was performed, everything is wrong. What do I mean by that? Your glomerulus is hyalinized. The tubules are having tubular interstitial nephritis. Okay? You have sclerosis of the blood vessels. So, in short, it is basically classic for CGN. Naintindihan, class? Are you okay? Sige, testing. Icebreaker. Pero thinking icebreaker. Okay? This one is lupus. Okay? I said it's type 2 RPGN. So, if it's type 2 RPGN, what is the classic histologic feature that should be present in your questionnaire? Crescents. Okay? So, crescentic should be the classic description. This is Henoch-Schönlein. Again, another lesson. But this time, purpura. Meaning, you have skin lesions. Okay? You also have hematuria. Take a look at the deposit. It is mesangial. Recall, what is the disease that I have mentioned gives you IgA deposition, mesangial also. Buerger. What is the classic manifestation of Buerger? Hematuria. So, parehas. Tama? Anong kaibahan nito? Purpura. Did you get that? Okay, next. This is good pasture. Testing. What is the other organ that you should check? Good pasture. Lungs. Yes, what do you expect? Pulmonary hemorrhage. W. Second bullet. RPGN type 3, ANCA-mediated, di ba? Example, Wegener's, microscopic. Okay. Next. This is recall of Patho A. And in your slide, last week, supposed to be KW or your nodular glomerulosclerosis. Kanina, sabi ko, glucose should go back, right? So, ito ang example na glucosuria, proteinuria, and basically you have to also measure your blood sugar level. Okay, let's move to the next. Tubular interstitial. So, sabi ko, you have to know now if your patient is in AKI. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo nun, ha? AKI, CKD, ESRD. That's your spectrum. Now, if your patient is in AKI, as I have said, you have to take a look at the etiology always. And tubular interstitial are divided into two. Usually, one is ischemic, the other one is nephrotoxic. Okay? One is ischemic, the other one is nephrotoxic. Example, ischemic is self-explanatory. Any diseases that cause ischemia in the kidney. Okay? Toxic, on the other hand, is, for example, you want to do radiocontrast media that can be toxic to the kidney. Suicide, admittingly, is medications that are taken that can also be toxic. You give medications like NSAIDs that can actually is proven to have nephritis-associated diseases. Okay? So, ATN, how do you know that it is necrotic already? what you need to observe is actually the output of your patient. Okay? Output of your patient. So, you identify the cause, you monitor the output. When I say output, you think of two terms, oliguria, anuria. Oliguria, anuria. Take note that AKI or ATN is supposed to be reversible. So that when you treat your patient, you are supposed to have a reversible problem. Now, how do you diagnose? When you're talking of ATN, sabi ko, clinically, you check the output. Lab exam, what do you need to do? You need to do urinalysis. Okay? Look specifically for cast. Okay? Cast. Because as the tubules gets to be necrotic, the degenerated epithelial cells accumulate in the lumen. That's why when you take a look at it under the microscope, which I suppose you're done last week, there seems to be pinkish material inside the lumen. That is passed out as cast. And that is why in the urinalysis, you need to look for cast. Because this cast actually obstructs your tubules. That is also the main reason why you are having oliguria and eventually maybe going into anuria if you cannot control the cause. Because I have mentioned it is supposed to be reversible. So, ischemic classically gives you skip lesion. I don't know if you can, that's my code, the sound of the K. Ischemic skip. So I won't forget that when it is ischemia, it is skip. Okay? So the other one is nephrotoxic. It is supposed to be diffuse. So when you're taking the exam, the ischemic is skip, nephrotoxic is diffuse involvement. Usually where? In the PCT, because it is the point of maximal reabsorption. Now, when your patient is improving, as I have said, this is supposed to be reversible. How will you know? Output again. As you can see from here, when your patient is in the recovery phase, your output also increases. So, when the patient is deteriorating, you have no output. When the patient is responding, you know that it's responding because the output is also going up. Okay? It is supposed to be reversible. As I have mentioned, I think this one is better. You see, the degenerated epithelial cells are within the lumen. It causes occlusion. That's why you end up with oliguria. You pass it out in the urine. That's why, as I have said, anong hahanapin mo? Bukod sa lahat ng nandun sa urine, important is cast. Okay? You look for cast, that is your clue. Okay? Now, when you say tubulointerstitial, it simply means the nephritis there, itis. The inflammation is in the area between your tubules. Okay? As you can see here, the tubules are okay, but this time you have inflammatory infiltrates in between your tubules. That's why it's called tubulointerstitial. Now, let's talk about all of the itis this time. Let's start with pyelonephritis. There are two types, acute and chronic. When you say pyelonephritis, you are taking a look at the kidney sa taas. Okay? Pelvis, tubules, interstitial. Now, how is it that it is reaching your kidney? The most common is fecal contamination. That is why you have E. coli as the most common organism isolated. So, added workup, apart from what I have already enumerated, should be culture and sensitivity. Because, as I have said, you need to identify the organism and know what antibiotic works best. Identify the organism. If you think that the cause of pyelonephritis is because of an infection happening elsewhere, like pneumonia, for example, that goes into septicemia, then you have to do blood culture. If you think that it is an ascending infection on the other hand, then you have to do urine culture. The urine culture will tell you the specific organism, the blood culture will tell you also the organism, and of course the antibiotic susceptibility testing. Now, our lecture is on kidney, so let us focus on ascending infection. The most common is E. coli. So what happens is that it goes up, going into your bladder. The bladder is a good nidus where they can multiply. Why? Because it is stagnant. There is stasis. Okay? Normally, your urine as it is formed from the kidney is stored in your bladder. That's why sometimes, di ba, sa atin, sa mga normal, you sleep at night, kailan ka iihi? Bukas na. Okay? So, the stasis promotes colonization, multiplication of your bacteria. And that is what you call as cystitis. People with CPN usually have deranged VUR. VUR stands for vesico-ureteral reflux. The reflux is because of an abnormal angulation as the ureter is inserted into the bladder. It is supposed to be a one-way traffic, but that defective angulation allows backflow from the bladder going up into your ureter. So when it is in the ureter, it is now going up again back into your kidneys. That is why it is called ascending infection. Now, in the bladder, it may appear as pustular. From the bladder, it goes to the ureter. It appears as pustular lesions like this. This is what you call as ureteritis cystica. From the ureter, it goes up into your kidneys. And as you can see, you have papillary necrosis here. So this is now what you call as pyelonephritis. So cystitis in the bladder, ureteritis in the ureter, pyelonephritis when it's now in the kidney. Now, there are two forms, acute and chronic. When it is different, how is it differentiated? Depends on the inflammatory cells that you see. So for example, for acute, you're expecting it to be more of neutrophils. Okay? For lymphocytes and macrophages, of course, that's chronic. Now, there are other things that can be associated apart from vesico-ureteral reflux. But as I have mentioned, that's the most common culprit that is seen for patients having chronic pyelo. So, chronic pyelo, dahil meron kang deranged VUR, allows repeated healing and infection. Do you understand? Ulit repeated healing and infection. With healing comes fibrosis. So, fibrosis leads to scar. That is why the classic gross appearance of pyelo is basically irregularly scarred kidneys. Why? Because you have repeated healing and fibrosis. When you take a look at the histologic, you see lymphocytes, macrophages, you see thyroidization of the tubules. I think you studied that sa laboratory, okay? Thyroidization of the tubules and stromal fibrosis. Now, there is a form of chronic pyelo that is quite rare, in which you see foamy macrophages and appearing as nodules. This is pyelo, but often, if it's the variant, it ends up with nephrectomy. Why? Because it appears like a mass. Okay? When you do your workup, diba? When you do your workup, part of which will be your KUB, radiographs, which we call as KUB. So, when you see this, as a doctor, ano iisipin mo? Baka tumor. Okay? Because it's quite big, as you can see from the image. So what will the surgeon, you refer them to the surgeon. Surgeon, what does the surgeon does best? Cut. Okay? Operate, remove. So you end up with nephrectomy. And when the histology comes out, it's basically a variant of chronic pyelo. So I'm just reminding you that there are cases in which it may appear as a mass, mimic a tumor, but basically it is a variant of chronic bile. Okay, so as I was telling you a while ago, skip, diba? Nephrotoxic drugs. Examples, you have the drugs enumerated here, and as I have mentioned, usually they may cause interstitial nephritis. I have placed in red some of the things that may help you identify that it is drug-related. Fever, eosinophilia, rash, okay? IgE, because it's basically allergic in nature. And these NSAIDs, as I have said, can lead to your AKI. Let's go to other causes. One is uric acid nephropathy. And then the other one is nephrolithiasis, or your stones. This is an example of uric acid nephropathy. So, from the term itself, urate. Ano ngayon ang idadagdag mong lab exam sa patient mo? Of course, uric acid. Okay? It is supposed to be high. Now, if you are going to take a look at myeloma kidney, that's also stated in your book. If you will recall, ano ba ang multiple myeloma? It's a tumor of plasma cells. It is related to Benz-Jones proteinuria. It can lead to formation of cast. Liver diseases can also have bile cast nephropathy because of the high bilirubin levels that we see in these patients. Okay. Intindihan? Ang expression ng mukha niyo, parang nalulunod kayo sa kidney. Okay. Pero anyway, kaya nga sabi ko, kidney is not that easy. Okay? Medyo mahirap talaga siya. Kasi medyo marami talaga siya. Okay? Pero, kaya yan. Second year is the hardest part of your life. Remember that, pag napapagod ka. So what do? You just move on. All of us pass through there. You just have to pass through as well. Hirap kayo talaga. Mas masarap sa V-neck. Bakit? Walang plating. Yun ang una. Pangalawa, kaya masarap yung 5 weeks. Kaso ang problema, lahat ng source ng grade mo, major exam. So, kung wala kang study habits, medyo mahihirapan ka sa major exam. Pero na-practice ka dito eh. Bakit? Weekly plating. Tama? Double pa nga. Diba? So, ini-introduce kasi ng second year, kaya siya mahirap. Yung inaral niyo dun sa teacher ko din, na teacher niyo, si Dr. Vivar, for example. Teacher ko siya. Pati si Dr. Valerio, Dr. Barbon. Okay. They are also my teachers. Yung tinuro nila sa atin sa anatomy and histology, puro normal lang yon, di ba? Pagdating mo sa patho, inintroduce sa iyo yung disease ng napakabilis, napakarami. Okay? That's why patho is actually the bridging discipline to clinical. Kasi, lahat ng inaaral natin ngayon, like kidney, will be in internal med nephro. If we move to female genital later, that's gonna be in OB-GYN. Okay? Sa lungs is internal med pulmo. Male genital is in surgery. Okay? So in short, dito, compressed. Pero doon, uulitin. Uulitin nyo ulit sa 4th year. Ang pinakamasarap 4th year. Bakit? Nag-BP ka lang. Joke lang. Nag-monitor ka lang ng vital signs. Wala kang ginagawa. So, makikinig ka ng conference, bubodyakin ka ng konti, pagka nagkamali ka sa history, yon. And then, pinakakaba ka ulit after ng PGI. Bakit? Mag-boards. Yeah. So, hang on. Second year is destined to be the hardest. Life gets easy as you go up. After PGI, that's when you have tachycardia again. Because it's PLE. Okay? Elevation. Actually, nang gusto kong introduce. BP elevation is hypertension, sabi ko nga, sa kidney. Okay? Now, when you're talking of elevation of blood pressure, you're dealing with kidney problems, blood vessel particularly. Kasi kung titingnan nyo, di ba sabi ko kanina, glomerulus, tubulointerstitial, blood vessels are the four things that you have to look into. So, why is the BP going up? These two is actually a reminder of what physiology, Dr. Valerio, we used to call her Snow White. I don't know if that's still her tagline. Okay? Dr. Valerio teached us that BP is cardiac output times total peripheral resistance. Diba? So, the TPR is actually the problem in the kidney. Your lumen decreases in its size. Okay? Why? Because of thickening of the blood vessel and usually deposition of proteins in the wall, which makes it pink. Okay? So, classically, you have a fine granular external appearance, and as I have said, pink appearance because of protein. That's what you call as hyaline arteriolosclerosis. Pink again for fibrinoid, and onion skin appearance for hyperplastic. So, BP elevation is called malignant hypertension because the BP is quite high, 220, 180, okay? So these are basically worrisome blood pressure. When the BP is high, as I have mentioned, it is usually due to blockage. Blockage that causes increase in your TPR, which may be due to what? Plaque or dysplasia. So, let's go to another group that is mentioned under blood vessel, and that is thrombotic microangiopathies. So from the term itself, thrombotic, okay, microangiopathy. Ibig sabihin, you have to take a look at more likely evidence of hemolysis also. There are three diseases, okay? HUS, hemolytic uremic syndrome. So meaning, may uremia ka. Ano nito uremia? Mataas ang BUN creatinine level mo, and then you have manifestations outside of the kidney. Okay? You have hemolysis. So what do you need to do? You have petechial purpura in your skin. Your GI might also bleed. So what do you need to do? You need to have CBC. This is thrombotic. You need to have what? PT and PTT levels. Just to rule out that you're actually looking at the kidney and not other causes of coagulation factor defects. Okay? So, you have to watch your platelet count because again, one category is thrombocytopenic. So, now, let us try to differentiate one from the other. So this one, as I have said, is the cause of obstruction. There are two types of HUS. Again, HUS stands for hemolytic uremic syndrome. Do not forget to check the bowel movement of your patient. Again, bowel movement of your patient. Typical is diarrhea positive. Okay? Atypical, wala. Because there are other causes. So, ulitin ko ha. Diarrhea is important to be checked. Ask your patient. Okay? Pag meron, that is more likely typical. Pag wala, that is atypical. And these are the other causes of atypical HUS. Now, kung TTP yan, thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, ano ang clue mo ulit? Your platelet count. Okay? Your petechial hemorrhages in the skin. If you do your analysis, molecular at that, you have deficiency of ADAM STS 13. Okay? So this is an example of renal vein thrombosis, and this is an example of cortical necrosis, which is ischemic necrosis usually seen after obstetric emergency. Now, necrosis in the kidney appears as infarct, white, or anemic. Okay? Typically, on microscopic examination, you will see coagulative type of necrosis. Okay. So let's move to the next, congenital. Itong pinakamadaling part ng chapter. Actually, pwede na nating pictures na lang. Bakit? Mabilis siya. Agenesis means wala. Hypoplasia means lumiit. Okay? You differentiate hypoplasia from atrophy, and I have already enumerated there how you differentiate. Then you have double ureter, for example. You also have ectopic kidney, meaning hindi siya retrognath na tababa siya, which may cause, again, kinking of the vessels. And then you have your horseshoe-shaped kidney. So, these are examples of congenital anomalies. Let's go to cystic disease. Ito ulit yung mahirap. Ulit? Yes. Yan o. Okay. Haba ulit. So, how do we deal with this? How do we learn this? The cyst can easily be localized, it's distinguished. The first clue is check the location. Okay? Itong huli. Check the location. That will actually group the diseases into whatever it is on the first column. Okay, let's try to go through it. It is due to a mutation. That's the most common. Fibrocystine and polycystine, which alters the tubular epithelial growth and differentiation, leading to cyst formation. Okay? So, when you have cystic disease of the kidney, ito ang table na kailangan mong aralin. Pero parang ang dami, di ba? So, as I have mentioned, what do you need to do? You need to localize the cyst. And how do you do that? You do KUB, or ultrasound. Now, the ultrasound will tell you where the cyst is located. Is it cortico-medullary? Okay? Is it only medullary? Is it single? Is it multiple? So those are the questions that you need to ask to somewhat break it down. Okay? Now, as I have said, genetic-wise, you can check. Look for what? Polycystine 1, fibrocystine mutations. Okay? These are the ones that causes your renal problem. So, ulitin natin KUB and genetic chromosomal analysis. Now, so the first on the list is cystic renal dysplasia. Among the long list that I have shown you, cystic renal dysplasia, the word dysplasia should remind you of disordered growth. Yun ang code ko doon. Bakit? Because you see a lot of things that are not supposed to be there. Like what? Cartilage, undifferentiated mesenchyme. So, it's actually disordered growth. So, this is how it looks like. I'm sorry. This is cystic disease, simple renal cyst. This is dysplasia. You see cartilage, undifferentiated mesenchyme, and immature collecting ducts. So, madali siyang ma-rule out kaagad. Look at the stem, the description. If you see abnormal structure that are not supposed to be in your kidney, and ang description ay may cyst, automatic, ang bilis lang ng sagot. It is cystic renal dysplasia. Okay? Now, paano kung, ito must read, must not skip, ADPKD. Okay? Now, AD stands for autosomal dominant. So, if you recall genetics, that's basically 1 in every 2 pregnancies. Okay? AD is autosomal dominant. AD is also adult onset. Do not forget that. So, ibig sabihin, living a normal life, and then when you hit 40 to 60 years old, renal function progresses. Okay? Decreases. Take note of, well, my code for extrarenal congenital anomalies is LBM. L for liver, which is polycystic, okay? And then B for brain, and then M for heart. So when I look at ADPKD, I'm also reminded of LBM, okay? So these are other organs that you should check among patients with ADPKD. As I have said, they live the normal life and then eventually when they reach 40, magiging ganito siya. Okay? Classically, as I have mentioned, you have to look at where are the cysts. In ADPKD, they are all over. It involves the outer surface of your kidney, the inner surface of the kidney, and usually it ends up with bilateral nephrectomy like this, so that you may have to have renal transplantation, of course. Now, this is an example of a fixed state in which, again, this is a reminder of the mutation that is happening in patients with ADPKD. Now, take note that in ADPKD, as I have said, 4th to 5th decade of life. Why am I emphasizing that? Tapos na to. This is LBM. Ano ulit yung LBM? Liver, berry aneurysm, mitral. Okay? Now, because the other one is autosomal recessive. So yung kabila is childhood onset hanggang teenager. Okay? So ulit Now, the other difference is autosomal dominant, as I have said or as I have shown you, has bosselated external surface. Kita yung cyst sa labas. The autosomal recessive, the external surface of your kidney, as you can see, is smooth. Okay? Smooth. So yun ang isang difference when you're taking a look at the question. Take a look at the location, the description of the cyst. In autosomal recessive, they are usually associated with hepatic fibrosis. You do not see the cyst on the external surface. When you open it up, that's the time that you see the cyst, which is characteristically described as sponge-like appearance. Okay? Now, as I have mentioned when I was doing the introduction of the chapter, you may need to do dialysis. For some patients, there is what you call as dialysis-associated cystic disease, which looks like this. The problem also is for some patients, there's a rare complication that dialysis is associated with renal cell carcinoma in 7% of cases. Okay. So, next, sabi ko, localize the cyst. Now, this is the group in which the cyst is now in the renal medulla. How does it look like? Ganyan lang. Wala ang cortex, nasa medulla lang silang lahat. That's why, as I have said, when you have cystic disease, localize the cyst. Now, as you can see, it's all in the medulla. When you have it's all in the medulla, these are your differentials. Okay? 1, you need to ask the familial history. 2, you have to check the eye of your patient because in some groups, there's renal retinal dysplasia. Okay? So, now, cystic medulla is the usual manifestation. And as I have mentioned, usually you're expecting polyuria and polydipsia for this patient plus eye lesions. Okay. Let's go to stones. When you're talking of stones, this is how it looks like embedded in the kidney. How do you treat patients with stones? They're actually falling under a category called obstructive uropathy. Okay? So how do you treat them? Surgeons will usually try to fragment the stones by, like for example, laser. So, when the stones are fragmented, they hydrate, or that's what you call a shockwave lithotripsy. They fragment the stones, they hydrate the patient, and supposed to be the stones will then be passed out. Okay? The usual manifestation of your patient is pain, because as it is passing out, it is actually sloughing the epithelium so that it's pain and hematuria as the usual manifestation. I have mentioned that this falls under obstructive uropathy, meaning it blocks the flow of urine. So, when you have a big stone like this is a staghorn calculi. it does not allow, you cannot pass it out because it's quite big. So what happens now is it causes, the term is obstructive uropathy, meaning the presence of the stone does not allow your urine to go out. So what happens now? Initially, it dilates the pelvis. And then eventually, it dilates your major and minor calyces. As it dilates, they look like cysts like that. So that condition is actually what you call as hydronephrosis. Ulitin ko ha, hydronephrosis. There are other causes of obstructive uropathy enumerated here. But whatever is the cause, hydronephrosis looks like this. Ano ulit ang nangyayari? The urine cannot go out. So what happens? The pelvis compensate, it dilates muna. Pelvis muna. And then eventually, even your calyx dilate, the major and the minor calyces. So you end up with multiple cystic structures like this. What is the treatment when this is already what's happening? Nephrectomy. Okay? So the treatment is nephrectomy for such cases. So urolithiasis, you can determine the type of stone. The lab can do the assay for you. But it is quite pricey. Why? Diba? Wag na lang, kawawa naman ang patient. Pero if you would want, you can actually determine the type of stones. So this is an example again of what I'm trying to emphasize, which is a condition called hydronephrosis. Okay? Now, let's go to tumors. When you have tumors, it is divided into two, benign and malignant. So I have tabulated it so that you'll have an idea of the things that you need to go through. But honestly, benign lesions in the kidney are quite easy to manage. Why? Because the term is actually telling you what it is supposed to have. Like, adenomized gland with papillary fronts. Angiomyolipoma is blood vessels, smooth muscle, and fat. And commonly patients do have tuberous sclerosis. Fibroma is again fibrocollagenous tissue. They are usually small like that. Small but then ending up with nephrectomy, yes. The kidney, unlike the breast, for example, is not that accessible. You cannot just enucleate the lesion. So even though it's small like this, as you can see, it ended up with nephrectomy because, again, it's not that accessible. Now, this one is an example of the mast read variant of malignancy. Again, renal cell carcinoma. Renal cell carcinoma is divided into this. You have 5 variants, which is actually telling you what is the predominant structure to look for. The point of emphasis is the most common, which is the variant of clear cell carcinoma. They are called clear cell because, again, as I have said, the microscopic speaks for the lesion. The cytoplasm is expected to be abundant, empty-looking, okay? That's why the term is clear cell. This is usually related to smoking. You have a costovertebral pain, hematuria, and mass as the usual manifestation. Now, the other one is urothelial carcinoma. This one has, check always, again, bladder as origin or renal pelvis. Ulit ha? Bladder or renal pelvis. Because urothelium is the point of origin, or the tumor cells are originating from that. And so, the usual location is the urinary bladder, and the other one would be your renal pelvis. So, ito yun. Originate from the urothelium. Okay? So, tapos na yan. This one is the typical example. You have the pelvis, and you have here the bladder, which is filled up with your tumor cells. So, that is an example of urothelial carcinoma. What can you do to diagnose? You do ultrasound again, which will give you the mass. Or you can also do urine cytology and cell block as an additional test. Why is it? Because as the urine is going out, di ba, neoplastic cells tends to lose its cohesiveness. So supposed to be the tumor cells are going out also in your urine. You can do cytology and cell block, and we can actually see the malignant cells in the fluid specimen. The other thing is you can do cystoscopy with biopsy, meaning we take tissue samples and then we take it out and then we interpret it as either malignant or benign. Okay? That ends my lecture. Ano oras na? We move to female. 5-minute break. Okay? Hinga ng malalim habang nag-check ako dito ng PowerPoint.